My name is Martha Ban. I'm the Technology Resource Director for the North American Division Education Office. I'm happy to be here with you today. I would have rather have been with you face to face rather than virtually, but a virtual presentation is at least better than not at all. Today I'm going to be sharing with you about the North American Division Dashboard under the scope. We heard for years, data roll-up is coming, data roll-up is coming, you have to be ready for data roll-up. And we're all saying, really? It's like the boy who called wolf. Well, finally it has arrived. We attempted to have closing reports done by data roll-up, all electronically. And so today I'm going to take some time to just give you a good overview. If you haven't been inside the Toolkit and been familiar with the applications or the apps that are available to you, this is a chance for you to see what they're all about. The first reason that we're going to talk about it in lines for data rollup is efficiency. Efficiency in this day and time is very, very important. We're also busy multitasking. We have more to do, it seems, every day. Sometimes we wish our days were longer, but then you know what? We just have more to do to cram into those days. But efficiency is a really big reason for electronic reporting. The first item of there is accuracy. The less times you have to transfer a grade over, the less times you have to convey a transcript, the more accurate you will be. When one person can focus just on that one area, then things become more accurate. We can talk about the efficiency of space. It used to be that elementary teachers would need to turn in their school register, their blue book, at the end of the school year. That would go to the office would take those to the conference office, and the conference office would have to store those because they were legal documents. Well, now with electronic reporting and with data roll-up, those are the legal documents, and we no longer need to worry about storing endless amounts of blue books or school registers. God expects us to be good stewards of time, and when we can do things electronically and we can make use of electronic transfer and things like that, that's a good thing. We can then use that time spent that we could have been spending doing things over and over again, replicating things, and now we can use that time for something else more worthwhile. So the results, the benefits rather, are endless. We can talk about going green. You know, every time you use paper or use a pencil, if it's a wooden pencil, we're using up trees. I used to charge my students for copying a worksheet that they had lost because I said, you know what, we love trees. I'm not going to have you just think you can make a copy after copy after copy because you're losing your work. You've got to pay for it. We love trees. And then we can talk about cost efficiency. God also expects us to be good stewards of money, and it's important to be able to save where you can. If we're not using CUME folders and registers, blue books, grade books, and whatnot, we're able to save money. So the benefits there exist from the school secretary level all the way on up to the North American Division level. And then we're talking again about accuracy. In the previous database, we had all kinds of duplicates. Oh, I misspelled a name, I'll just make a new ID number. Oh, this person got married. Guess I need a new ID number. And then we had things like students all had the same birth date. Now, I understand that more than one person is born on every day of the year, but when you come across a school where there are maybe 10, 12 students, and they all have the same birth date, that's just a tad bit suspicious. And what about students that all had the same last name? That too was very suspicious. And you can understand how that would be, perhaps. You're a teacher, you want to get your students into Small School Minder or into RenWeb or whatever the student information system you're using, and so you decide to do that at home because you were at school way too long, and you don't want to take all your folders with you, all your information, your CUME folders, so you just take your school roster. And you get there and you start having to import the information, enter the information rather, and it's like, are you kidding me? I don't know that kid's birth date, or, I wonder if this is spelled wrong. And so we had all kinds of mistakes in the previous database. The point is this. Helen Keller says, alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. Phil Jackson, who was the longtime coach of my husband's favorite team, the LA Lakers, a big rival of my team, the Boston Celtics, Phil Jackson says, the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. I like that quote. I think both Helen Keller and Phil Jackson had an eye on what teamwork really was all about. And we can work that way and make a good cohesive team. That brings us to this, the Adventist Education Toolkit. If you haven't logged in, you would put your email address in here, this area here, and then your password. If you've forgotten your password, you can click on the link here. The email address would be one that you would use for your school and that your conference office would have. It's very important for you to keep your email address up to date in the dashboard. When you log in, if you're a principal, you would have these 5 apps. The user manager for the educators, the files for secure files, data roll-up that takes us into the electronic reporting area, the student IDs, which is self-explanatory, and then certification. Let's take a look a little closer. Those are the 5 apps available, as I just listed there, and they are available at different levels of access. The user ID is only available from the principal level and up, principals, conferences, and unions. The student ID is available from the registrars up because they need to get in and work with student ID numbers. E-certification starts at the teacher level. You can log in and see your own certification report, but as a principal can log in and see a certification report that has each teacher's level of certification along with each status sheet of the teacher. In other words, the principal will have a listing of what the teacher needs in order to be recertified. This is so that the principal and the teacher can work together to ensure certification is happening. Data roll-up is available at the teacher level on up. A teacher will be able to see their class, all their classes, and the parents and whatnot. A teacher will be able to go into data roll-up and see their own reports, their class list, a list of parents. They'll be able to print a school directory and all kinds of other reports. The principal will log in and be able to see and print reports for that list all the teachers, and so on and so forth. You'll see more of that a little bit later. And then the files are available from the teachers all the way up. Both the user and the student ID list can be printed as a PDF file or a CSV or a spreadsheet file. And security within the dashboard is based on jurisdiction access. So I explained to you the different levels, and that's a really important thing because you need to know that another teacher cannot log in from another conference and be able to see your information. The only people that can see a teacher's information is the principal at their school, if there is a principal, and the conference, and then the union. And they would have this kind of information anyway. So let's take a look at the Student ID Manager a little closer. When the conference logs in, or rather when the union logs in, they're able to see all of their conferences, and then all of their schools, and then all of their students. So let's take it to Wisconsin Conference. Whoops. If we had Wisconsin Conference here, you could print all of the students in Wisconsin Conference, or in this case, Illinois Conference, by clicking this button here. Or you could just directly click into the school itself. So if we were logging in as a principal or a registrar, we could go here and print a CSV of all my students. This is in my demo school. And you can see a quick listing of their ID numbers and their birth dates. This is very helpful at the time of Iowa tests if you need to put those ID numbers somewhere or any reason like that. I talked to you before about the duplicate ID numbers, and I'll just take a minute to show you this instance. If you are the person at your school who is responsible for ID management or managing the student ID numbers, this would be somewhere that you hope that you wouldn't end up. If you attempt to make an ID number for a student that already exists in the database, it will get held. You won't be allowed to do it. And that student record would come here, as you can see. Two people, myself and Stacy Gusky, have access to this page right here in the database. And this is how we would manage those duplicate ID numbers. We actually are pretty picky about this. And if we had logged in, you would see that Justin Davis, they attempted to create an ID number for him. They tried twice, and the reason they were not able to make an ID is because there is another person whose name is Justin Davis, but the birthday is different. I'm not showing you that because Justin Davis isn't your student, but it's very, very specific when it searches in the database, and so we're trying to prevent duplicate ID numbers. I'll just show you some of the system emails that you would get. This one here says Blue Mountain Academy School has requested to transfer this student from your school to theirs in the student ID system. Please check the student and take appropriate action. So this is automatically generated. You can email the registrar if you have a question. You can approve the request because the student is no longer here, or you can deny it. You can say, this kid is here in my school, and you can deny it. This goes right to the appropriate person. It would go to the registrar and say, we've approved the request, or I'm sorry, your request is denied. All right, so it's all right there. We like to keep everyone in the loop. Here's another sample of a system-generated email. This is transferring out. It says that the request to transfer the student out of your school has been completed. The student will now be listed in your outgoing students list. It tells you the name of the student, what school it was sent to. All right, and again, these are automated messages, so we don't need you to reply. Now, I talked to you about the duplicate situation. If you attempt to create a duplicate ID number, you will get this kind of message. The student record you created for Jiwon Kim, which was held for administrative approval, has been approved. That student is now subscribed to your school in the student ID system. Okay, this is a situation where it went to the pending file, and then we actually said, oh, you're right, this is a whole different kid, so we'll approve that ID, and it was released. Here's one where that was denied. The student record you created for Gilbert Blythe, which was held for admin approval, has been deleted. It appears a record for that student already exists in the system, possibly previously enrolled in another school. Please return to the transfer or add a new student tab, enter the student's name, and so on and so forth. It says most likely. It even tells you what ID number you're probably looking for. Now we'll take you to the educator or the user manager. The jurisdiction, it works just like the student IDs. The jurisdiction is for instance, the principal sees their teachers, the conferences see their schools and then their teachers, the unions see their conferences and then their teachers. So here's an example of an educator record. This is my Martha Principal record. You can see my full legal name, first name, middle name, last name, my educator ID, my birth date. Now keep in mind this birth date is not available to everyone who searches in the database to see. Okay, so we are very much attuned to the privacy factor. This is the email address. Conferences are the ones who manage the educator IDs. Principals or anyone at the school cannot add or edit IDs. That's just a principal, or a union could actually go in and do it. This shows what role I have. I'm listed here as the head teacher at the Worcester Elementary School, and this tells my start date. Now, you may, if you've been at a couple schools now, you can have 2 or even 3 or more roles. You can even have 2 roles at the same time. For instance, Steve Brown is your TDEC member. Steve's record would show his role at Wisconsin Academy, but then it would also list his role as the TDEC member. So you can have parallel running roles, but also when you go from one conference to another, your role is ended in one conference and then your new conference starts your new role. This is a really important thing because this bit right here is what guides your access. For instance, if right now on this record I have access to Worcester Elementary School in data roll-up, as soon as somebody puts an end date in here, as soon as the conference lists an end date, I no longer have access to this school. It automatically shuts that access off. So that's why it's really important that the conference is ending their roles and adding the new roles at the beginning and the end of the year so that people have access to what they need to have. So that's what your role looks like. If you clicked here on e-certification, you would see your certification record. You can log in to your account and click Edit Member and update your own email address, and I encourage you to do that. Please keep that up to date because that is how we are able to communicate with you. So just to review, as the educator, you need to keep your email current. You're able to access your e-certification record here. Your role, I talked about the roles, they're not tied to service records, so you don't need to worry about that. If your start date is not quite right, it's not going to affect anything as far as service records. And roles are added and ended, as I mentioned, by the jurisdiction above. All right, let's talk about the file structure, the files. In the dashboard, you have the Files app, and that is where our secure resources are. These are specifically for NAD SDA teachers. When you click on the files, you'll see this listing right here, these tabs, and I'll tell you just a little bit more about them. This listing is for administrators. It is quite long. There's information about Cognitive Genesis, about Griggs International Academy. This is where you can download information there. The Harcourt Macmillan, anyway, our math curriculum is here. There are all kinds of things for big ideas and Go Math. All right, and standards for the math. So that's under administrators. Under the dashboard tab, you have all the resources for using the dashboard. You have Principals User Guide, the vision for data rollup, how to read your error log in data rollup. That's a very, very important thing. How to use the data bridge if you need to do that. How to add an educator to the user manager. All sorts of resources there in specific reference to the dashboard. The next one is under Stepping Stones, and This also has a great number of files of resources here. There are PowerPoint presentations from lead teachers. There's also PowerPoints from the last convention we had. The math tracking cards are here. You'll find newsletters here and more. You'll want to check that out. The TDEC resources has all kinds of things here, of course. You can click here and get a PDF listing of all the NAD educator discounts that are available to you. This is a way you can save money big time on all sorts of things, not just for your school, by the way, but for yourself as well. For instance, did you know that as an Adventist educator, you can get a discount on your AT&T bill or your Verizon cell bill? That's something you'll want to check into. The Corel software is here for you to download. The serial numbers are there as well. The information about Encyclopedia Britannica is here. How to log in. The information for Learn 360 is here. The admin start guide. Good stuff here under TDEC resources. And then we have the TDEC webinar listings. Here are all the listings for 2012 and 2013, the last school year, and actually they go back as far as we were doing webinars. I will tell you that TDEC has kind of come to an end of doing the technology webinars. We made that decision because there are so many other companies that are putting out top-notch webinars. I think of Sophia.org. I think of Teachers First. There's K-12, Simple K-12, and they do these webinars as a profession, and they're free. And so you really can't beat that. So take a look. I'll show you where on the TDEC site you can look, but it's under the TDEC site and under resources, and there are all kinds of places there for professional development and for webinars. But you'll want to take a look here at all the webinars that are here from last year and the years before. A great deal of professional development right there. Then we talk about e-certification. I mentioned that you can print out that report. Here is what mine looks like. You're welcome to look at your own. Actually, you should. It tells you the registrar that you are connected with. You need to really be checking this and make sure that it is what it should be, okay? Because certification obviously is an important factor of your teaching. And now we come to data roll-up. Data roll-up is just that. It's the rolling up of data. There are 3 vendors that have been approved by the North American Division, and those 3 vendors are actually programmed to roll up or sync import records seamlessly. With Small Schoolminder, if you are a Small Schoolminder user, your data is imported and syncs every night. If you're an iNow user, the same thing. With RenWeb, you need to contact RenWeb and make sure that things are set up before you can expect to see your import. I know that they have been working quite hard with schools to get going with that and making sure that your custom fields are set up and so on. Maestro is another one. I know that Griggs International Academy is working with Maestro, and that's simply because none of the others could. Griggs has open enrollment, and it also is around the world, and it's all online. So that was something that RenWeb or iNow could not manage for us. Let's take a look a little closer at each one. Small Schoolminder is at the cost of $50 a teacher for the year. That's extremely economical. This software was written for our Seventh-day Adventist system. The software does belong to us. It is run by STI and managed. However, we do own it. They operate under our direction. We come with updates and say this needs to be done, and they take care of that programming. None of the other vendors do that, by the way. It is billed through your conference from the North American Division. There's information on the Adventist Education website under the Assist tab, SIS. I mentioned it's an SDA program. We do have NAD support through Stacy Gusky, and also a brand new entity that's coming on. You'll hear more about this. That's called AIM, and it's the Adventist Information Ministry. This will be a phenomenal help. Watch for more information on that. I mentioned that we have direct connection to STI for programming. Also, that's true for support. And this is specifically for schools that are K-8 schools or K-10, our junior academies, for an enrollment of about 150 and less. Okay? It's an excellent program. Stacy is available to do training at any time for you and at no cost. I will tell you, no cost to you. And I will say that if you are a small school minder user who does not like the program, 9 times out of 10 it's because you haven't really had good training. No offense to you, but that's just how technology is. Information Now is run by STI. We have an Adventist advisory committee. STI pays for us to be at their users conference. They have all kinds of support videos available, and there's a custom setup guide for data rollup in files and on the dashboard. And again, we have a direct line to their head support and to their head programmer. RenWeb and Maestro are two that we're just starting to work with. RenWeb believes that the school is their client, and up until about last week, I would say, they had a very closed door policy, a closed door business to the NAD, in other words. They have now changed their tune on that and realized that the Adventist schools are part of a system, and so they have been working very hard to comply with reporting, with report cards, so that they are based on the official NAD report cards and getting the standardized classes and so on and so forth. So, and Maestro is doing the same. So these are the 3 and almost the 4 that are approved vendors and that are worked, as I said, to program to roll up directly and sync with data rollup. If you are a user of another entity, as in PowerSchool or Administrators Plus, or there's been a couple others, they would need to create a bridge, a programming bridge, and that's going to cost dollars. And whether or not they choose to pass those dollars off to the schools is up to them, but it could be very expensive. So those are the options, the vendors. And let's talk about reports. In data rollup, there are lots of different reports that are available. To explain data rollup, think of, okay, you've entered your information into one of those 3 vendors, or almost 4 vendors, and so the information is in your student information system, and it's rolling up into the big database, to our SDA, our Adventist data server. All of those fields in your student information system have been programmed to go into different report fields. So when you click on a directory button, you would get populated a directory with all of your information. Now, those reports don't stay stored. They are created every time. So if you make a change today and you run a report tomorrow, it's going to reflect that report, that current report. So there's no more having to go back and change it in your computer file and print out more directories that are current. Everyone can just print their own, and it's always going to be right. Opening reports are the same. Let's just take a look a little closer at these. I think you can see them. Here's an example of a directory. Okay, this is from Michigan Conference. You can see how the information is there. This information here was put in at the local level of the school. The conference didn't do anything, but here we can click on Conference Directory and get all of that information in a directory that looks very nice. Same with the opening report. When the school has the information in the school's student information system, the conference can click on the school opening summary and have all of that report information generated. School does it correctly, fills in all the fields in their student information system correctly and completely, and then the principal can click on a button and generate a report. The conference clicks on a button, generates another report with all of their school's information. It's just totally cool. Here are some generalities to think about. Reports are only as good as the data is entered. So, in essence, if one teacher makes a mistake, then everyone's report is going to be off. So it kind of ensures some accountability here. 100% accuracy committed schools are going to give us accurate conference reports. User guides are in the files if you need more information on how to use things. Then everyone gets to click on their own button to get the report that they need at their level. Like I said, it's pretty cool. I'd like to show you an overview, a video first. So let's take a look.
Welcome to the Adventist Education Toolkit, an initiative of the Office of Education of the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. The Adventist Education Toolkit utilizes the most innovative data management technology to take advantage of the organizational benefits the modern world offers our educational system. With the Toolkit, you can access critical information essential to managing Adventist education from the classroom to the union level. With a few clicks of the mouse from anywhere in the world, you can access aggregate and specific data for an educational community with tens of thousands of students, thousands of teachers, and hundreds of administrators. This is powerful, this is useful, and best of all, it will enhance your experience with Adventist education.
Using the Adventist Education Toolkit is easy because it is designed to meet your individual needs whether you work on the union, conference, or school level. Once you've logged in, what you see and what you have access to will depend on your position and the permissions you've been granted. However, because the system was designed with you in mind, it's simple to find what you're looking for. With User Manager, principals and head teachers have access to information for managing their school's faculty and staff. Employee names, email addresses, dashboard roles, and IDs are all accessed and managed quickly and intuitively. Conference and union administrators will readily appreciate how User Manager can help them streamline the process of administration. With User Manager, administrators can grant access to essential data and data roll-up and determine who has permission to certain information. If coordinated properly, not only does this app guarantee security throughout the toolkit, it also expedites the process of data distribution for all. For those interested in saving money and more effective teaching, Secure File is where you can find Corel software, webinar archives, discounts on teaching supplies, textbook order forms, and unique educational web tools and software. Secure File isn't just for teachers. Administrative resources specific to our Adventist system are also found in this area. With the Secure File app, you can take advantage of special pricing and cutting-edge teaching resources that are specifically negotiated and designated for Adventist educators and students.
The Toolkit offers principals and administrators the opportunity to save time and money with the Data Rollup app. Data Rollup is the North American Division's educational report generating system that modernizes the delivery of standardized school reports. Imagine being able to create opening and closing reports, educational directories, classroom lists, and other important records in a matter of minutes. As long as data has been entered correctly, metrics such as attendance, baptisms, enrollments, and graduations can all be summarized instantly. If this wasn't enough, Data Rollup is directly tied into several SIS vendors, including Information Now, RenWeb, and Small School Minder. When we talk about saving time and money, we mean it. The Student ID app allows school administrators to obtain and track student IDs across the North American Division. When a student enrolls in any Adventist school, they are automatically given a student ID number that follows them through their PK through 12 experience. With ID numbers, report generating and tracking student and school success is simple, especially when they're combined with the capabilities of data rollup. The student ID system has been completely redesigned and rebuilt to adapt to a school's typical registrar workflow, thereby eliminating administrative burdens and streamlining data analysis. The e-certification app is available to everyone using the Adventist Education Toolkit. With e-certification, staff and teachers across the division can make sure all of their endorsements are up to date and that their professional development goals are being met. Administrators can also see the same information, giving them an opportunity to make sure teachers and schools are getting the tools and resources they need for success in the classroom. Generating a certification status report is as easy as verifying your data and pushing the print button. As a professional, if you move within the NAD educational system, your e-certification file follows you, thus ensuring your information remains current.
The business of Adventist education is all about providing young people the values, beliefs, and skills they need to be strong Christians. The more we can work together toward this goal, the brighter our students' futures will be. Join your fellow Adventist education colleagues on the Adventist Education Toolkit today.
So hopefully you have a better picture of that. You've heard it from me, and then you were reviewed with the video. And now I'd like to just give you a little bit, a few more tips, okay? In talking about students, I'd like to just review with you that for those of you that are the student ID managers, this is what you would need to do. We'll go to my demo school. And what you need to make sure that you are doing the first 2 weeks of school is managing your student list here. You can see that all my students from last year are now in last year's list, last year's students list. And what I need to do is go through and either enroll my students for 2013 for this school year, or say, hey, that kid graduated last year, so I would click graduated, or I would say, oh, they're not coming back anymore, so they're no longer enrolled. I'll do just one or two so you can see what happens. Here's Alfred Peter Ostrup, and I'm going to enroll him. He's coming this year, so I would enroll him. And you can see now that he's in this year's student list. With Flicka Kitty Ostrup, she graduated, and so I'm going to click the graduated button, and now you can see that she's down here as an outgoing student. Now if I made a mistake and say, oops, I hit the wrong button, all I have to do is put her back there and, well, put her in the right list. So now she's enrolled. Okay? So that's what you need to keep in mind for your student list. You need to manage that first. If, as you saw, you need to add a student, you would add the whole, type in the full legal name. Okay, Serious Puppy Ban and the birth date. And what I would do when I have this is I would look down here because it says, as you type, please check below to see if the student record already exists. And you can see, if I look here, that there is a Serious Puppy Black Dog. Well, that's not quite the same thing. And the birth date is 2000 instead of 2011. So I would go along here and I would just say, all right, this is an entirely different student. So I would check here and then I would create the student. And then here you would see that they would be right here in my student list. Here he is. Now, the more information you can give, the better off we'll all be as far as avoiding duplicate records. So please make sure that you are giving the full name as far as the full middle name as well. I won't take any more time on that because I know that you don't all deal with student ID numbers. I do want to show you a little bit more about data rollup. So let's take a look and see how the data rollup situation will help you. For instance, school has all of their information in. The teachers have put it's all in the student information system. And so we want to print a school directory. We choose the directory, school, and Lake Union, Wisconsin Conference. I choose my school. Now if you're logging in at your school as a principal, you would come up with only your school. So we'll take a look at Wisconsin Academy. No data. Well, let's try a different one. Here we go, Three Angels Christian School. We download the PDF, and here's a school directory. Okay, so you have all the information. Again, if you put your information in the student information system, then it will feed directly into this report right here. If there's no information, then your directory will be incomplete. Let's go back and do a conference directory. So here we are, Education Directory Conference. And again, Wisconsin Conference, and we'll download. And so here, if all the schools had their information in their student information system, then this would be a complete conference directory. So you can see how this is a huge time saver. The conference gets their directory, a union can print their directory, the division can print their directory. The different kinds of support of reports available for teachers, depending on your access, record of scholarship, there's a blue book, and that would print the whole entire blue book report as it was a blue book by teacher. I'm not going to do that now because it's a large report and will take a little bit of time. Classroom list, daily attendance, certification by school or by conference, record of scholarship. So take a look, guys, at data rollup. Before we finish here, I want to just show you about the imports and how you can help your import files be correct. This is a really important part because obviously if your import file has errors, then that's going to prevent your reports from going in correctly. You can see on my screen here I have this button that's called a manually enter data area here. If I click on that, we'll say I have no manual data entries, but this is the area for you to enter your report if you do not have data in here in the system. And I'll show you what that means. We still have until I believe April 15 to be able to enter information for closing school reports. Right now there are a lot of schools that don't have data in, that it's not being imported into the data server. And I'm going to just show you, I have a list of all of the schools, but when you as a conference, when your conference superintendent logs in, they can click on the summary button and see all of the schools in their conference. So obviously this is taking a little while. I'll tell you what I should do. Let me just switch users here. And that will be better. I'll give you a picture of your conference. So I'm going to log in as Superintendent of Wisconsin Conference and go here to Imports and click to see the summary of all the Wisconsin schools. And this is going to show all the schools that have a file in and those who don't. So if there is no import record for you, then it will have this, it'll have a dash right straight across. So this school here has no import field. This one has a small school minder one, which is excellent. Has 0 here. That means there are no critical errors. There are 115 warnings. And I'll show you how to read this in a minute here. So the next two have no import file. This isn't to pick on anybody, obviously, because I don't really know which one of you is at which school, and I can't even see you. So I'm not picking on anyone. But I will tell you that what this has here for Wisconsin Academy and Milwaukee Seventh-day Adventist School is they have entered their data using the data bridge. That's that manually import enter button that I showed you that on before, you saw right up here at the top. And what that means is they did not have an import file, and so they entered their data closing school report manually. They clicked on that manually enter button and it opened up a form, and they were able to put in their closing school import information, closing school report specs as far as enrollment and whatnot, and submit it that way. Like I said, you have until April 15, I believe, April 14 or 15. And if you are a school that does not have an import file, we are asking that you go ahead and enter that information manually. The way that you'd be able to do that is log in as the principal or the registrar of the school, and you would see a message right across the top in red that says there is no data file in there. Would you like to enter it manually now? And that's exactly what you want to do. There would be a red X in the top in the corner over here to close that error message or that message box, and then you would see the button right underneath there, and you would click on that and go ahead and enter your information. I think Steve Brown would be able to help you. Wisconsin Academy has done it, so if you have any questions about it, Steve can help you. Or you can give me a call too, or send me an email if you get help, if you need help. Milwaukee also has done it, so you could see somebody there from Milwaukee who did it. Now, if you are one of these three schools and you have errors, let me show you what's going on. 9 times out of 10, these errors here are because the student or teacher ID numbers are not correct. So let's go ahead and check, click on Otter Creek. Oh, I'm going to have to log out of this role in order to do that. So bear with me. So let me go here and let's see, we're going to do Otter Creek. So let me get back to my import button. Okay, so it's going to bring that up. You can see that the last import was 4 days ago. And I'm going to go ahead and click on these 33 this record here, and it will download. Now I'm using a Mac, so what you're going to see is the log file. But what my suggestion is to you is that you save it to your desktop and open it in Word. Let me make this a little bigger for you. And you're going to look for something right here. It says errors preventing record from being imported. Let me make that bigger. And this is what's very, very important. Errors that are preventing the record from being imported means that it's not going anywhere. And the reason for that is right here. The student ID number has an X in front of it. Now, I'm not sure why you have an X in the student ID number, But here you go. That's what's causing your errors. And like I said, most of the errors are because the student ID numbers are incorrect or the teacher ID number is correct. And a really good way to find those errors is just do a search for errors preventing the record from being imported, and it will take you. You can see this one, it's because of that ID number with that X in it. Now, I think I already showed you, you should know now where to get your student ID numbers. Looks like that's the only ID number that's picking up that prevented it, but what happens is because the ID number is wrong, then every other time in the record that student is associated with something else, it's going to be an error because the student ID number is wrong. This is one of our built-in validation methods in the programming. When your file imports, what happens is all the student ID numbers are checked against the student ID database. And so if you have a student in your student information system with a made-up ID number or one that's not an official NAD ID number, it will prevent the file from importing. It goes out, it checks against the ID database, and either allows it to import or not. You can think of it as the key. So the file comes up to the data server door and tries to get in, and the key is the student ID number. And if the ID number is not correct, then you're not going to be able to unlock that door to allow the file to be processed. And the same is with the teacher ID number. So see if you can get those things straightened up. And then, as we were talking about, when you have good data, then it's a win-win situation for everyone. So if you have not gotten your data in there, if you come into as the administrator of your school or the registrar, if you come into data rollup and you get that message in red that says that you don't have a file, an import file, then you can go ahead and click this manually enter data, and it will open up that form, and you can go ahead and put in your closing school report. So please take care of that right away. You can see that there are many schools, many of you, that don't have any data in there for closing school reports. So if I go and look as Wisconsin Conference on my closing school, I can go here to School Closing Conference, and Lake Union, Wisconsin Conference, download my file. And you can see I have 12 closing school reports, and you should be able to see here. I don't know if your statistics are correct or not. I'm hoping they are if they're in here. Bethel's here, Frederick is here, Green Bay is here. Now, if you are a small school minder school, your files have automatically imported, but if you had errors, then this information probably is not correct. Here's Hillside, and here's Maranatha, here's Meadow Creek. Meadow Creek had no students, so you might want to check that out, because that'd be an easy job if you were teaching at the school and you didn't have any students. Here's Milwaukee, and you can see, remember, Milwaukee was one of the ones that did the data bridge, and so here's that information that came from the manual import. Here's Otter Creek, and you remember you had that student with the ID, with the error in the ID field, so I'm assuming that this information is not correct. Here's Peterson. And Rhinelander. Now that had a lot of errors there too, so I'm guessing that this information isn't correct either. Three Angels is here. And then here's Wisconsin Academy. So see what you can do with your closing school reports. Be as accurate as you can. Check your error logs. If you have any questions about how to read those error logs, you can give me a call. I'm happy to help you out as much as I can. I'll make sure that your conference has my contact information. I'm sure you have my email address, but I'll give you my cell phone number as well, so you can give me a call if you need to. So I hope that helps give you a better picture of what the dashboard is about and what data rollup is all about. I think it will be a awesome thing as soon as we get everyone taking part. So remember, together we can do all kinds of things, and the team is as strong and as good as its individual players. All right, have a good rest of your day and the rest of your meetings, and someday maybe I'll be able to see you guys in person.